Yo, 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 yo. What's up, everyone? Welcome to episode 48 of the MMAHOLICS. Thank y'all so much for joining me. I'm your boy, Antwane. Doing this podcast solo today because the boy, Nikki, was kind of busy. He had a training session tonight that he really couldn't miss. As y'all know, Nikki is training now to become an MMA fighter. So, he has our full support here on the channel. So, he had to take the night off just to go, hit some mats, some pads. I mean, hit the mat too, with some grappling and stuff like that. We'll definitely ask him about it. When he comes back, of course, for the next episode, we break down UFC 319. But thank y'all so much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate y'all as always. Every week, like I said, we're gonna become more consistent on this podcast, and it really is probably one of the biggest goals I've set for myself this year personally. I'm just really, I've always been a fan of MMA. I love UFC. Like I told you, I'm a journalist who covers basketball for my jobs. But I've been watching MMA since I was like 12 years old, and I'm 26 now. Just turned 26 in June, so definitely been watching for a really long time. So I love UFC most definitely. And yeah, today's gonna be kind of like a shorter breakdown. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Just gonna be breaking down the UFC Fight Night. I almost said Hermanson. Hernandez versus Dolidze. Jack Hermanson did fight Roman. He did fight Roman Dolidze, and of course, it did not go his way. But not gonna have that long of a breakdown for tonight. I do have to submit this article by the time I go to bed tonight. So I was gonna go ahead and get started with the breakdown. I'm gonna keep y'all here too long. Whoa, just got hit with this topology shit. I know they just announced their rankings and stuff like that, which is pretty interesting. We'll definitely go over that during one of these episodes with me and Nate. I would definitely love to go over that with him. To be quite honest, just of course to get his opinion in the podcast, of course, So I do want to, of course, always have a difference of opinions, not just mine and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a decent card though. Looking down, we got Roman Dolidze versus Anthony Hernandez, Steve Erceg versus Ode Osborne, Yasmin Lucindo versus Angela Hill, Andre Fili versus Christian Rodriguez, Miles Johnson versus Gene Matsumoto, Eric Anders versus Christian Leroy Duncan, and Julius Walker versus Rafael Cicada. Julius Walker's back after making his UFC debut against Alonzo Minifield. I thought that was a pretty good performance for Julius, considering he took it on short notice. So, um, yeah, like I do think that this card is pretty solid in my opinion. I do think it's pretty good. I think it's catching a lot of hate right now. Just UFC fans being UFC fans. Um, telling Nikki like I think UFC fans have really become desensitized to the cards that the Ultimate Fighting Championship puts on nowadays. Because, from my opinion, there's no way that the cards are at an all time low, but the last cards, even like this last Apex card, was like absolutely phenomenal. You feel me? So I don't believe in that narrative. I just think a lot of people are desensitized to MMA, and unless it's like a UFC 300, UFC 299 type of atmosphere, I think it's gonna be kind of hard to satisfy the fans from here on out, especially the older fans who have been watching for such a long time and stuff like that. And I think doing their research like that on these new prospects, because it's new fighters all the time, understandably so. So I think that the cards are only getting better. The evolution of the UFC is only increasing. And I think by the time we hit 2030 is when we'll finally see like the golden era of the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Like, of course, we have legends now, like John Jones, all these kind of fighters, Khabib, GSP. But I think the sport's going to be really popular, like at that time, and it would have made a lot more money and stuff. So, but like I said, y'all, this is not going to be a long breakdown. Probably get done with this within like the next 25 minutes or so. Like I said, I do have to hop on this article and I really want to finish it before I fall asleep. I had work today too, my side hustle. So, yeah, I know there's not many people in the chat tonight compared to our last couple shows, but thank y'all again as always for joining me. and I'm gonna go ahead and break down this card for you. So, first fight of the night, we had Cody Brundage versus Eric McConaughey. It's a pretty interesting fight. Cody Brundage. Obviously, people aren't that high on him, given what's happened throughout his UFC career at the moment. He's a nice guy, but he is 5'5", 1 inside the UFC. That's pretty insane. His last few fights, the last one, I believe it was originally a KO win for, nah, they like the way they did it. It was like they took like the first 2 rounds, of the fight, and they just judged it like that. That was on that Atlanta card. I was there in attendance. Unfortunately, that fight was not that good. And you can see, it was overturned. No incomplete rounds should be scored per Georgia rules. So that's just how it went. You feel me? I do think that Mansour Abdul-Malik, he won that fight for sure. I was kind of disappointed in both fighters, to be quite honest with you. Like, neither fighter did much in that fight, unfortunately. The crowd definitely let him hear it. But outside of that, though, he lost to Bo Nickel, which you can't really take too much away from that. He has a DQ win over Jacob Malkoon. The win over Zach Reese does look pretty good now, if I had to say so myself. I know Zach Reese isn't having the best career himself as of late. But he's coming off a win, of course, against Dusko Todorovic by decision at that. I probably should have finished that guy, to be honest. But I did think that was a pretty good win. Probably his best win, especially given the fact that he slammed him and got a TKO that way. I think that was like right after another slam KO on the same card. If I remember correctly, it was like 2 back-to-back slams, or yeah, it's Chicago. I remember that shit. That shit was crazy. Yeah, man, and this was a pretty good card too. That UFC, I think it was in San Diego. It was in Austin, Texas. That's where it was. It was a pretty good card too. That Dariush versus Sarukian. So either way, let's get back to the original card, of course. In this fight, I was gonna go with Cody Brundage. I know I didn't break down Eric McConaughey like that, but I just feel like that's because there's not really much to really talk about with this guy. Like, he's gonna have like a 3-inch height disadvantage. The reach is about even for this matchup. And he got knocked out by Sultan Ruzibo. I mean, I can't take too much away from that. He took it on short notice. He did have a fight coming up on the 14th. So I guess I take that back. Actually, he actually had a fight coming up, but of course, fighting a guy named Buddy Wallace and having to fight Sultan Ruziboev, a solidified UFC fighter, was a massive step up for the regional scene fighter, and it didn't go his way. And I think that Cody's still like a pretty, I can't say he's a pretty good fighter, but I do think that he's the better fighter in this circumstance. I think he'll get the win. Honestly, by decision. I don't think he'll knock him out. He could KO Eric McConaughey. We've seen him knocked out prior to this matchup, but I just think that Cody's gonna play it safe. He has to win here, a win, a solidified actual win. So I think Cody's gonna play it safe and really just probably get the decision victory. And yeah, I want to go to Cody Brundage to get this win via decision. And moving on up the card, of course, Gabriela Hernandez versus Julija Stolienko. This fight is pretty close, in my opinion, because I do think that Julija is a really, really good grappler. I get it. The betting odds say -400 for Gabriela Hernandez, especially after that win over Wong Kong like that, or Wong Tong, something like to say. But I don't know, man. I think Julija, his jujitsu is very deadly. I get it. She got a win over like Molly McCann in our last fight. But she does have really good jujitsu. Like 10 of her 11 wins are by way of submission. So she is a really good BJJ. She's really a practitioner, as you can tell there, by her picture and stuff. I'm showing up the fights in her gi and stuff like that. So I think for this fight, I was gonna go with Hernandez. I think she'll build off the performance of the last one when she got over Wong Tong. That really woke a lot of people up on her abilities, and I love how the topology update has like their UFC record. That's pretty cool. And it highlights their UFC record instead of their complete record, so that's really interesting. Or that's pretty cool. But I was gonna go with Gabriela Fernandez to get the win via decision. Going to the next one. I won't spend too much time on this one either. I do think that I won't call it a mismatch, but I just really like Udos Medic here. I get it. He's had some hard matchups. I think it was Punahele Soriano. I picked him to knock him the fuck out in his last fight, and that did indeed happen. It was in January. It's on that Islam and Natsu Maikano card. Unfortunately, did not go his way. I did pick against him in that matchup, but for Gilbert Urbina, I just think that Udos Medic is going to be like the way better striker here. So I was gonna go with Udos Medic. I think it's a bad matchup for Gilbert Urbina. I feel bad for all of the Urbina siblings. I think Gilbert was the one who was on the Ultimate Fighter, and he got knocked out by Trayshawn Gore. Out of all people, he got knocked the fuck out by Trayshawn Gore, and that does not look good. Especially after Gore's last fight. So I do think that Udos Medic will first round knockout in this fight, most definitely. And moving on up the card, once I get back to it, of course. Moving on up the card, of course, I was going to take in this fight. Won't spend too much time on this one either, because I do think that Edwards can take this pretty comfortably. I think he's just a better striker, the better boxer. If it hits the ground, I think Edwards is the better, has better BJJ. Neither of them are that good on the ground. They're really both strikers, which is why I think they set this fight up. But I do think that Edwards looking better in the UFC with her 6-4 record compared to Priscilla, who's 5-6. I get it. Competition matters. Priscilla did fight my favorite fighter of all time, Valentina Shevchenko. But I do think that Jocelyn's the better fighter here. And let's see what the betting odds are thinking. And everyone agrees with me apparently. So I was going to go with Jocelyn Edwards to get this victory. I think she'll be the better fighter, like I said, the better striker. If it hits the ground, she'll be better on the ground. I don't think it's gonna hit the ground though. I think they're gonna strike the whole time, and she's gonna take it to a decision, and that's it. But yeah, moving on up the card, we got Elijah Smith versus Toshiyomi Kazama. I'm not gonna y'all. I'm not even trying to rush the card, y'all. It's not the craziest card, to be quite honest with you. I'm not trying to have like no 20-minute breakdown or anything like that. But it's really just, at least with this fight, particularly like Elijah Smith versus Toshiyomi Kazama. I like Elijah, look pretty good on the Contender Series. He's really young, at 22, so all these next few fights are really just about him showing his improvement and showing that he is UFC caliber. He beat Vince Morales by decision. So, if he's supposed to be considered a bright prospect, that's a guy he should definitely get a knockout win over. But he's been fairly consistent throughout all of his career. He was getting finishes on the regional scene, so this shows what happened when you step into the UFC, most definitely. And yeah, I think he's looked pretty good. He's 1-0, so just still learning from this guy. Super young, like I said. So one of those new generation fighters. We'll see what he can do. But I do like his boxing. I think he's a decent striker. Really has to work on the grappling. He has one win via submission. And it was in the third round. Look at Topology. He hit 3 TKOs in the first round. That's crazy. So I do think that Elijah Smith is going to win this fight. I'm not really high on Kazama like that. I really look bad in his last fight. Even though he beat Charalampos Gregorio, the last two fights, he was getting knocked out by Renya Nakamura in 33 seconds. Like, we just saw him get a finish in 62 seconds, but we're not really accustomed to that from Renya. And he got knocked out by Garrett Armfield, too. Just getting not blasted in the first round by both of these dudes. I think this fight, they're giving it to Elijah because they want to see him grow, similar to what I said. I think they like his potential. He got performance of the night in his last fight, but I think that Elijah's going to be a way better fighter than Charalampos Gregorio. Every time I read his name, I think of like the Galapagos Islands or something like that. But yeah, I do think that Elon Smith is the better fighter here, and I think he's gonna get the win. If I had to give the method, probably get a knockout win, like in round two, box him up in the first round. Really, get his nose all bloody and like really just put the pressure on in round two and like get the finish. Julius Walker versus Rafael Cicada. Um, so yeah, man, the juice box to walking into mine is fucking 600 in this fight. Like I said, he came in his last fight against Alonzo Field on short notice. He's 25 years old, so he just turned 26 actually a couple weeks ago. So I'm happy belated, but he looked really good on the regional scene. A bunch of finishes, pretty well rounded from strikes to submissions, and he's a champion. He trained for 5 rounds, so we know he has a good gas tank. After winning a title on the regional scene, probably the title you see right here, most definitely. I think he's pretty good. He had a pretty good amateur career, won a belt. There's amateur career too. Took losses on the amateur scene, but this back when he was really young. He was probably like 4 years ago, 5 years ago. So, he was like 21, 22 when he was losing those fights. So, yeah, man. I just think that with this fight in particular, the UFC aren't really that high on Rafael Cicada, and I think they liked what they saw from Julius in his last fight. Um, with Rafael, it's supposed to be like a world class striker. You can see like all his wins on the regional scene, finishing got body kicks, punches, arm triangles, all of that. But as soon as he hit that UFC competition and getting knocked out by Ibo Aslan, which is not a good look looking back on it, and then he got blasted by Modestas Bukauskas. So, yeah, man, I just think this guy has really hit a wall in the UFC after going 7-0 in the demo fight promotion. Of course, when you're fighting guys who are 9-7, 0-1, 2-3, so just a part of it. You fight who you're given, but we all know it's a whole new level inside the Ultimate Fighting Championship. And just that being said, I was going to go with Julius Walker. And yeah, I just think he's gonna get the win. 1 minute, y'all gotta send a text message. 1 second.
And then we got Jewish Better. What's going on, Jewish Better? So, always how you doing? Appreciate you stopping by. So let's go ahead and get into the show. We're gonna start out with UFC Vegas 108 recap, as of course not ready, but main event was Tatsuro Taira versus Peace of Mind, Young Sung Park. I know you had this fight start.
1 second, y'all. Whew, my bad. I just had to send that right quick. Moving on up the card, almost the main card now. Actually, we're here already. So we got Eric Anders versus Christian Leroy Duncan. So with this matchup in particular, you got Eric Anders, who's been alternating between the light heavyweight and the middleweight division. Was his last fight at middleweight? I think it might have been 185. He's 9-8 at the UFC. That's right. It was that Chris Weidman fight, his retirement fight. My bad, y'all. Keep burping. Excuse me. The guy got a win over a future Hall of Famer in his last fight, but obviously it's the shell of the All American, and that fight is 10 years ago. Chris Weidman destroys Eric Anders. So, but outside of that, he's looking pretty good. He's actually on a win streak right now. On a 2-fight win streak. The ground bout's been kind of confusing, but it is good that he's staying active at least, even in his personal time. Lost to Marc-Andre Barriol, and yeah, the grappling bouts keep throwing me off. But yeah, either way, he's looking pretty good in his last fight. Like I get it's over older guys, similar to Eric's age at 38. I remember when this guy first got here, fighting like Lyoto Machida and shit like that. In main events and stuff, and now like 7 years ago, he's 31. Man, Jesus Christ, time flies, for sure. But for me, I just think Eric Anders, he's fighting a younger guy who's more athletic and more agile in this matchup. Christian Leroy Duncan also has a pretty good reach advantage, and he's taller, so he's fighting the younger guy, the more athletic guy. And I do think that the odds do indicate what's going to happen in the fight. Christian Leroy Duncan hasn't been the most impressive guy ever since coming over. He lost his undefeated record rather quickly inside the UFC. Um, but he's still getting better. He went to a decision with Gregory Rodriguez. That's a really good loss, I guess, to come back on it, seeing how Gregory really finished most of his competition. Excuse me. He really finished most of his competition. So it does show that Christian is UFC level, UFC caliber, in my opinion. And yeah, I just think with this fight in particular, I think Christian Leroy Duncan's gonna get it done. I think he'll play it safe. Release manage distance well. Stay on the outside, pick him apart. Good body kicks, good leg kicks, and probably just take a decision. He's not the most dangerous fighter. Um, so that respectfully, but I do think that um he'll at least win the fight, just being more athletic and more agile. Just a younger guy, the UFC knows what they're doing with this matchup, especially as the main card opener. Going to the next one, Miles Johns versus Gene Matsumoto. So, Miles Johns, I think they're finally off the Miles Johns train. I think he like pop for PEDs or it was something like that where um like it was something like that where like he got injured, but I think he might have popped at a certain point. Um, not trying to like put that on this dude, of course. But yeah, never mind. Never mind. Please forgive me. But yeah, I guess that's what it was. It was like some injuries, but he did lose to Felipe Lima in his last fight. I know Lima lost to Peyton Talbot, but I think Lima's still a great fighter, to be honest. And I think for this, um, like for this matchup, I think Miles Johns will be the better boxer here. He has good wrestling. Um, but I think Matsumoto's going to be the better grappler once it hits the grounds. When they start to roll around and hit those scrambles, I think he'll find pockets where he can really get that control time. And that's going to be his main method of victory. Not to spoil my pick or anything. It's for me with Miles John. I think he's 6-3, so he does have a good UFC record. But I just think that Gene Matsumoto can kind of replicate similar game plan that Felipe Lima had. And I think that he can get him to the ground, like really, get the control of time, take the back. Gene Matsumoto's not a bad striker. I don't think he's a bad striker by any means, but with 3 knockout wins. But his grappling is his bread and butter, and he really does like to win via decision for the most part. So I think coming off his first loss to Rob Font, he'll learn from that so much. And I think he's gonna come out here and really rejuvenated and motivated. He hasn't fought in February, so it's a pretty long layoff. So I do think that he can come out here and get the victory and show his improvements. I'm still really high on Matsumoto. He was one of the few undefeated fighters left before he ran into Rob, and it was a split decision at that. It was a close fight, so I do think the Matsumoto can get the victory here, and I'm picking him to win. I was gonna go with Gene Matsumoto to win via decision, and that's it. I think he's gonna take his back. Like I said, really prioritize the grappling, really not play that striking game like that, and we'll see if Miles Johns can stuff the takedowns. Going into our fourth fight from the top. Andre Fili versus Christian Rodriguez. So this fight to me is pretty interesting because Christian Rodriguez, he's not, he doesn't. How many wins does he have via knockout? So he has 3. His hands are made of pillows, so he does have some knockout wins. But as we've seen inside of his UFC career, he's more of a grappler, fairly up and down. He's 5-3, but he's lost to some dudes he shouldn't have lost to. Lost to Costa in his last fight. It's really a bad matchup for him with the strike, in my opinion. And just thought he looked good against Austin Bashi, who we just saw get a victory last week. And of course, he beat, dude on short notice, but it was still a good showing for Bashi. And he's taken so many undefeated records. I thought he lost to Isaac Delgarian. I'll be completely honest. I thought Delgarian should still be undefeated. But the Cameron Simon one was good. The Rahul Rosas Jr. one was good, especially at the time. And yeah, like the Joshua Weems win was good in my opinion. So he's always been fairly consistent. Like I said, the Julian Erosa, that should not have happened. That guillotine after getting caught is unfortunate. He was winning the fight, and I just think he got caught in a guillotine. We know how good UCJ is off his back, so but just a bad IQ moment. But he learned from it against the Bashi, in the Bashi fight, and of course he took another loss versus Costa. So I think this fight was at featherweight. Yeah, okay, cool. I thought so. So, yeah, man, I think for this fight in particular, with Andre Fili, the UFC veteran, he's taken a lot of damage inside of his career. He is the better striker in this fight, with no doubt about that. But he is 12-11 inside the UFC, and if he loses this fight, he'll be a 500 fighter. So, his last losses have came by way of finish or the KO with Dan Ige. He got a split over a 30, like a 40-year-old Cub Swanson. Um, it was a fight of the night, so it was a great fight for sure. But being that competitive with a 40-year-old is not a good sign. And yeah, like he got choked out by Mr. Costa, who's just really on a run right now. Well, he was. I think Costa just lost or something like that. But yeah, so going with Christian Rodriguez at this fight is really like not tailor made for him because I think the UFC like Andre Fili, but I do think that it's just a hard matchup for Fili. It's gonna be kind of a close fight though, I think, because like if the feet, if it plays out on the feet, I think Fili's the better striker, but I think uh, Rodriguez is the better grappler. I guess I'll just go with the younger guy in this matchup. I know Fili has more experience, but in that he's taking way more damage. He's fighting a guy that's 8 years younger. He's 4 inches shorter, and he has a 3 inch reach, 3.5 inch reach disadvantage. But I think Christian's a really smart guy, so I think he'll get the fight to the ground and really just probably get the sub, if I'd say. But I think he'll get the win via decision. For all you betters out there, I think he'll win via decision. So I was gonna go with Christian Leroy, thank you, Christian Rodriguez to win via decision in this fight. Going into our feature bout of the evening, the feature bout, we got Angela Hill versus Yasmin Lucindo. This is a close fight, really close fight in my opinion. It sucks, man, 'cause I really do like Angela Hill, but I'm extremely high on Yasmin Lucido. I think this girl will challenge for the belt one day. It's inevitable. She's too young at 23 years old, and she already has a UFC record of 4-2. She's 17-6. She lost to Amanda Lemos in her last fight. It is perfectly fine. She got a win over Marina Rodriguez, Karolina Kowalkiewicz, Polyana Viana, and Brogan Walker. These last two aren't that good, but Kowalkiewicz was a great win. And Rodriguez was a solid win for sure. We still just saw her retire, so I'm wishing her all the best. Love watching her fight, her striking. Um, and yeah, man. So with this fight, Angela Hill, we all know the story. She's every fight of hers extremely close. Extremely close, most definitely. She has 12 wins and 12 losses via decision. So every fight of hers is literally that close. It's like no exaggeration. It's always that close. So um for me, I don't know, man. I think this fight's really fucking close, man. She went to split decision with Ketlin Souza, who we just saw get dominated by Pieta Rodriguez over the weekend. She lost to Ricci, but Ricci's just be rebussed by finish. So the fact she went to decision with her is a good sign, in my opinion. 1 minute, y'all just got a text. My bad, y'all. But yeah, going with this one, if I had to just talk about their skill sets, I think Hill's the better better striker, yeah, with her Muay Thai. I think Yasmin Lucindo, though, is a little bit more well-rounded than Hill. I think she will be able to get the fight to the ground. Um, and yeah, man, I think like it's gonna be like it's really try to push the pressure on Hill, make her just be aggressive, make her tired. I would not be surprised if I'm wrong in this one. Hill could get close to a title shot, but I think she's beaten older fighters. Yasmin's beaten older fighters before, and I think better older fighters like Marina Rodriguez. So, um, the win over Denise Gomes is great, and the win over Luana Pinedo is yeah. But unfortunately, fight who you're given. She beat Lupita Godinez a couple years ago. She's still a solid fighter, and she has great wins for certain. I'm just really high on Lucindo, so I was gonna go with Yasmin to win this fight via decision. Hill's really tough. She's never been knocked out. It's tough woman. She's never been KO'd ever in her career. So, I love Angela Hill. It sucks. Like I really hate. I don't want to pick against her, but I don't want to. I'm a journalist first and foremost. Always being analytical, and objective first and foremost. So, but yeah, I got Lucindo to win a decision. Going into our co-main event of the evening, got Steve Erceg versus O'Day Osborne. Got Steve Erceg moving up to the bantamweight division after losing to like the absolute elite of the flyweight division. So they're giving him kind of a hard test. Oday's a pretty good striker, most definitely. He has a lot of power. He's really fast, super explosive, really athletic. But lost to Pantoja, then lost to Kai Kara France via KO, who just got dominated by Pantoja, and then he dominated by Brandon Moreno. So I mean, you can't take too much away from those losses, man. Because look at who he's losing to. And he went to decision with Pantoja. So, he is a good fighter, in my opinion. He really had to take that time off. He was off all summer. If y'all, of course, if y'all still count August, that's the summertime. I don't really. I really only consider June and July. But he was off all summer. Didn't fight any of that time, which was needed. It was needed for the chin. I'm pretty sure, they probably hit him with a pretty good suspension, which they honestly needed to do. So, in terms of his skill set, we all know Erceg. He's pretty well rounded. He's a good grappler, good striker, has solid takedown defense. Has more submissions than KOs. He does have power in his hands. Does have good boxing. For a guy who got his second KO against Matt Snell, he walked off like it wasn't shit. Like he was used to that. So, yeah, man, he's a pretty good fighter. I think he could find new life in this division. He's only 30. Just turned 30 on July 27th. So he's in his prime. He could find new life in the bantamweight division, but we'll see. He's fighting O'Day Osborne, who I think might have gotten a new contract. I think they like O'Day Osborne. All these fights, like the Mabayev, like the Filo, like these two are great grapplers, and the Ronaldo Rodriguez, he almost got him out of there in the first round. So with Luis Garol, he destroyed this dude, got himself an extra 50K that night, and shut up all the doubters. He was a plus 205 underdog heading into the matchup when he knocked him out in the second round, left hook, 2 ground and pound. So really exposed Garol, has no striking, just a wrestler, kind of one dimensional, and made it look easy, man, to be honest. So most definitely still a UFC caliber fighter, and that certainly showed that. He's lost to some really good guys himself. So this fight's kind of crazy, man. Like with the do or die circumstances for both of these dudes. I know that O'Day's coming off a win, but 13-9 on paper and 6-5-7 is a bad UFC record. So this fight's kind of crazy, man. The more I look at it, this fight's pretty fucking crazy, man. I get it. He's a minus 400 favorite. It's kind of respectful to Osborne. I think he could knock him out, man. Like 5% picking O'Day Osborne, bruh. He has the reach advantage, everything. So both these guys are moving up to the bantamweight division. Damn. Fuck, man. Shit. This shit really got me thinking, y'all. I'm not gonna lie. Fuck. It's whatever. I can't stay here too long. I do have an article to publish, so damn. It's whatever. It's a fight night, not a pay-per-view. I'm gonna go with Steve Erceg. I think he's the more consistent fighter. He lost to way better competition. He lost to two future Hall of Famers in Brandon Moreno and Alexandre Pantoja, two of the great flyweights of all time. He lost to. And he got knocked out by a two-time title challenger. So I'm still high on Erceg, and I think he's gonna get the win here. I got Astro Boy to get the win via decision. I think Ode is really durable, but it's going to be a striking affair. And it's going to be a really good co-main event, a really close fight. I think it's going to surprise some people. It's weird. Wonder why I came up like this. But going to our main event of the evening, Anthony Hernandez versus Roman Dolidze. This is a close fight, in my opinion. Don't let the betting odds fool you. I think both these fighters have looked really good. Both these fighters have a lot of momentum. Anthony Hernandez, he's really turned a corner these last few fights, man. Like, it's pretty crazy to see, like, he really hit a new level like this, and beating Brendan Allen, submitting Michelle Pereira, beating Roman Kopylov, like drowning in these dudes in the ocean, like killing these dudes, and Brendan Allen just saw get a win over a unanimous decision, dominated the fight. So he's looked great, man. Like, he lost to Kevin Holland. If they were to fight again, like, we know who wins that fight. Not talking shit to Holland. That was 5 years ago, and Anthony has certainly improved since then. So it was a pick 'em at the time. So both fighters have gone in different directions. I think Holland's still really good. But he's a welterweight now though, so kind of irrelevant to even mention it. But he looked great, man. These last few years, he's really turned a corner inside the UFC. Like, the dudes he's supposed to finish, he has, like, Edmund Shabazian, Marc-Andre Barrios, Roman Kopylov, Michelle Pereira, and Brendan Allen's a great fighter, So um yeah, man. Like, he's just like, yo, this dude's really, really good. I do think he could chase for a belt one day. He is 31, so time is a ticking. But this it's good that it's like this. Though he's in the middle of his prime right now, and his prime is probably gonna go from 31 to 33. Starts, maybe see him fall off at 34, 35, because he relies on his athleticism and his takedowns. So Anthony's actually really athletic. I don't let that physique fool you. He's super athletic. You can tell. Um, and yeah, man, I think for this fight, it's gonna be pretty close. Got to break down Roman Dolidze, of course, the Caucasian, Mr. Still Your Girl, for those who know. Um, yeah, man, this guy's 15-3, he's 37, but age doesn't really apply to Dolidze. He's like great. He's aged like a fine wine. Beating Kevin, it was a rib injury, but he beat Anthony Smith. He beat Marvin Vettori. Both wins. He can't really take too much away from him, to be real. Marvin Vettori, so funny because that's hilarious. Because Hernandez beat Allen and Dolidze beat Vettori. And yeah, so the win over Hermanson was a beautiful submission. I picked Hermanson to win that fight. Was devastated to see him lose on that night. It sucked. And like, I just think he's pretty good. He's a good striker, has good power in his hands. Most of his wins coming by way of knockout, 8 wins by way of KO, 3 wins by way of sub, and 4 wins via decision. Never been knocked out or submitted. So a very, very well-rounded fighter. I'm gonna see, fatigue makes cowards of us all. So we're gonna see how this goes. Most definitely comes from a great gem at Extreme Couture, but in my opinion, like, if I had to give I'm gonna give my pick, obviously. Um, I'm gonna go with Anthony Hernandez to get this win via third round submission. I think he's gonna do what he did to these other guys, just be super aggressive and drown him. I get it. He's a little bit bigger at 6'2", means absolutely nothing. Everyone that watches MMA knows that grappling nullifies height advantages. So yeah, man, I think he's gonna get the fight to the ground, and I do think he will get the sub in the third round. It's gonna be a war. Dolidze is a real like aggressive fighter, has a lot of momentum, motivation, I should say, like really hard press fighter. I just think that Hernandez like is gonna get him gassed out pretty early with the wrestling, and I think he'll get a third round submission and really have them like. I think after this, he'll get the loser of the UFC Paris main event, Nasruddin Imavov and Kyle Bahayo. So, yeah, man, I was gonna go with Anthony Hernandez to win this fight via decision, and this sets us up for the UFC 319. Of course, we're gonna have my boy Nikki back with me for this card. This card is amazing. Only got 11 fights on it though. It's what it is. You know, I'm always a quality over quantity guy. The pay per view, like the top 5 fights, perfect, amazing pay per view, excellent pay per view. All 5 fights will deliver. I wish the Pico fight was still 5 rounds when he was gonna fight Evloev Movsar. But you know, this card's still a great fight. You know, it's the kind of card where it's a one title fight card, and then in like they stack it because with we know with good bangers below it. I love one title fight cards like that. So that's it from me on this breakdown, ladies and gentlemen. Thank y'all so much for joining me. Almost still went an hour by myself. So thank y'all for joining me on episode 48 of the MMAHOLICS. Please, 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 please like, comment, and subscribe. Back with us next Wednesday, more than likely next Tuesday. Depending, I gotta get together with Nikki, so what his schedule looks like. And yeah, we're gonna break down that UFC 319 pay-per-view. One of my favorite cards of this year, my favorite main event of the year for shit sure. Won by a country mile. Fight's gonna be legendary in my opinion. And yeah, man. Thank y'all so much for joining. Like, comment, and subscribe. And please turn those noties on. And God bless y'all. Y'all have a great night. And enjoy those fights, most definitely.